Welcome to the hidden gem of Africa. This is Lesotho, a landlocked country inside of South Africa. Lesotho is the only country in the world entirely over 1,000 meters in altitude, making it one of the coldest countries in Africa, and with only having 2 million inhabitants, it's also one of the smallest countries in the entire region. But being here feels like stepping back in time. So come along with me on my 3-day road trip through one of the most underrated countries in Africa. Begin the journey getting picked up by our guide Keketso and his friend Katleho, who will be taking us around Lesotho for the next 3 days. We head out of Maseru and to our first stop of the day to the Taba Basu Cultural Village to learn about the history of the Basotho people. Here you can see the traditional huts and the ways that the Basotho people live. But the thing that's so unique about Lesotho is once you get out into the countryside, this is the way that people are still living. They have their cattle and their self-sustained lifestyle, and they still live in little groups and communities. And with that, let's drive further out into the countryside of Lesotho to see one of the most beautiful spots in the entire country. The drive into the countryside of Lesotho feels like you're transported back in time and into a whole nother world. And if some of these landscapes look familiar, that's because Lesotho is the main inspiration for Wakanda in the movie Black Panther. And adding on top of that, because it's so cold, the locals all wear blankets as their jackets, and that's also seen in the movie Black Panther as they use these special traditional Basotho blankets as the armor in Wakanda. Right around when we start seeing the snow-covered hills is when we venture off of the main road that we've been driving on for the last 2 hours and onto this really bumpy dirt road to begin the last bit of the trek out to one of the coolest attractions here. And for this entire drive out, I was glued to my window looking out into these beautiful, unique landscapes. And Lesotho is definitely a place where having a guide is very helpful because getting out to some of these remote destinations in the countryside can be quite a challenge, especially if you don't have a 4x4 vehicle. But after a tough drive on the dirt roads, we have made it. Welcome to Maletsunyane Falls. This area is one of the most beautiful spots that I've ever seen in my travels. It feels like a combination between Iceland and Mongolia. You can eat up at the restaurant on top where we had some burgers before preparing to hike all the way down to the waterfall. The hike down to the waterfall is super fun as the paths turn from gravel to snow as we get lower and lower. And after about an hour-long hike, you come around the corner and you're presented with this view. This 192-meter tall waterfall is the tallest single-drop waterfall in all of Africa, and seeing it capped with a light snowfall made it even more stunning. And as we hiked back up, the sun was setting, giving a beautiful golden hour glow to the waterfall and its surrounding areas. And with that, finishing up our hike, we wrap up day 1 in the beautiful country of Lesotho, already blown away by this unique country and excited for what lay ahead. Finishing out the evening on some dark roads to the guest house. And starting day 2 in Lesotho, we stayed at a guest house out in the countryside, and this morning we are walking to a local village to grab a taxi to our first destination of the day. And after a short 15-minute ride, we arrived in another village where today Keketso is taking us on a secret hike that only the locals know. It's so incredibly peaceful being out here in the villages. You barely hear any cars, and the main sounds you're hearing is from the cattle and the herders. After about 2 hours of beautiful hiking through the countryside, we arrived at another beautiful waterfall where the locals go swimming. There's even some grills out here to cook, as it's apparently a very popular spot for locals in the summer. Then it was time to head back towards the village that we started in. We passed lots of cattle and herders along the way and took in more of these beautiful, stunning views of Lesotho. On our walk to grab another taxi, we passed some locals with some of the most beautiful Basotho blankets that I've seen, which are all handmade woolen blankets that they wear against the cold here. And then it was time to head north, because for tomorrow's activity, we need high altitude and cold weather. waking up to a beautiful sunrise and freezing cold temperatures as we get back into the car and make our way further up into the mountains. Where we're going today is somewhere that I found through Instagram and has since been on my bucket list. So come with me and let's go to the Afri-Ski Mountain Resort. Snow in Africa. This is a surprise to many, but Afri-Ski is one of the only ski mountains in all of Africa. So here was my experience on my day at Afri-Ski.
So I'm out here snowboarding in Africa. Yeah, you heard that right. This is Lesotho, the kingdom of the sky, and this is Afri-Ski. Usually it goes all the way up to there, but it's closed this year. But we got all of this for skiing, so we're ripping it.
An absolutely incredible day of skiing and snowboarding, and for Katleho and Keketso's first time ever skiing, they killed it. And it was jazz day at Afri-Ski, so we got to listen to some amazing jazz music while we hung out in the restaurant, had some hot chocolate, and enjoyed people dancing. And after one of my favorite days on this entire trip, it was sadly time to head back to Maseru and make this trip come to an end. And in my 3 days of exploring Lesotho, this country has captured my heart, with its beautiful landscapes, amazing people, and incredible culture. It's one of those rare places left in the world that seems almost untouched by tourism, and you see the raw and natural beauty of the country. If it wasn't great enough, we got back to Maseru to the sound of fireworks celebrating the king's birthday as a final salute to our amazing time in Lesotho. Thank you, Lesotho, for showing me your true beauty.